Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Believe in best.
Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight, government faces criticism over New Year's Eve events at hotels. Pandemic pain lingers for Fusion Superplex. The F&M leader slams the Davis administration's first 100 days in office. Grand plans for Grand Bahama in the new year. And we count down the quotes of the week. Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Jared Higgs, topping news tonight. The Ministry of Health confirmed 520 new COVID-19 cases on December 30th. That was a new single-day record. Of the new cases, 474 are on New Providence, 27 on Grand Bahama, 4 on Abaco, 1 on Exuma, and 1 on Crooked Island. The locations for the remaining 13 cases are pending. Meanwhile, on New Year's Eve, the Ministry of Health reported 289 new cases. 36 people are hospitalized, with 2 of them in the intensive care unit. With New Year's celebrations this weekend limited for Bahamians, some are calling out the government for the double standard in allowing hotel properties to host large gatherings, while Bahamian event organizers had to cancel plans and issue refunds.
It may be safer to be outside at a concert instead of inside at bars, nightclubs, and the casino. I hope that is the case. I don't want anyone to get sick.
Those comments by Prime Minister Philip Davis drawing criticism as some Bahamians label the exemption of hotels from the prohibition on large gatherings as unfair. Davis himself admits that questions surrounding that decision are fair. Speaking at the office of the Prime Minister's weekly press briefing, he says government's rules are meant to limit transmission risk while allowing economic activity.
Often these twin goals are in contradiction with each other. It's not easy balancing act. It is not an easy balancing act.
While Davis acknowledges that the decision may be unfair, critics, especially those in the F&M, point to the PLP's criticisms of the former government's decisions. Former Torchbearers President Carlisle Bethel posted an old tweet from Director of Communications in the Office of the Prime Minister Latrey Raming. In that tweet from January 27, 2021, Raming wrote, "It is so disingenuous what the F&M does." Brave Davis said it was unfair for the government to allow bars out Lightfoot Key to open, but bars operating over the hill to be shut down. His position is there cannot be 2 separate rules. In an interview with our news over the phone, Opposition leader Michael Pintard accused the government of flip-flopping.
And I think one of the things that have plagued administrations in the past, and clearly the government finds itself in a similar position, is adopting a position while in opposition and then getting into the chair and switching or flip-flopping. Now, it's okay to change your position if you have compelling evidence that justifies it, but nothing I've heard from the government justifies them now behaving in a manner similar to what they had criticized in the past.
Meanwhile, some residents offered mixed reactions to the decision.
Because the fact is, there you go again, you're going to have a lot of people. Unlike the carnival, yeah, you're going to have a lot of people, but I'm pretty sure the protocols would have been much easier to follow than having events, what I've seen on social media. I think they were like concerts and that type of stuff. Everybody bungled together. I don't understand.
Well, I 50-50 on it, because if they do it, at least the money still will trickle out to the Bahamians, you know?
Yeah, and like I said,
But
this is on their property and their closed environment, so I mean, they should be able to handle their gathering more better than us. Like if we have a gathering someplace else, you know, plenty people being to come and gather.
A grim assessment of operations at Fusion Superplex as executives say the entertainment facility makes less than 50% of 2019 revenue, which is just enough to remain open. Berthany McDermott reports.
10 months after reopening amid the global pandemic, Fusion Superplex CEO Carlos Folk says the entertainment center is only making enough to pay its staff and keep the doors open.
So ticket prices being lower, occupancy rates being lower, revenue is about 1/3 to 40% of what we would have seen the same time last year, and 2019, all right? And it's just enough to keep the company open and the members of staff employed, all right, we're not really getting any profit margins.
Fusion Superplex was one of many businesses forced to cancel New Year's Eve events amid a rapid rise in cases. Earlier this week, folks estimated a $50,000 loss in revenue from the cancellations, which he said could have assisted in paying staff. Despite the drastic drop in revenue, he said they've made the decision to remain open.
We are still working on payment plans for our vendors, persons like National Insurance and BPL. So I joke with my managers all the time. We're really open to ensure that our employees have someplace to work, all right? And it's difficult shutting down a business and starting it up again. That has other implications and other costs. Loss of inventory, frozen goods have to be discarded and stuff like that. And you don't know when you'll be able to open again. And so that's not the best course of action for a business. So we decided to continue operating despite minimum revenue and potential losses that accumulate.
To ensure social distancing, Fusion has reduced the number of individuals allowed in each theater to 50%, a measure that is also impacting its bottom line. That means only 100 people will be allowed to watch a movie inside a theater, which could easily accommodate 200 people.
In the case of the IMAX theater, which is a very large theater, we never brought it back to full capacity. Some of the smaller theaters that were not as well attended, we saw a rise in those during the holidays, and we have cut back on those as well to 50% occupancy, all right? And in the theater system, the filtration is excellent. So we require people to still wear their masks. We break up the seats into segments so families can sit together, and that's been going well. So far to date, globally, as far as I know, there have been no cases or no outbreaks tied to any theater operation anywhere in the world.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
F&M leader Michael Pintard giving a scathing assessment of the Davis administration's performance as it marks 100 days in office. He said talk from the government isn't matching what's being manifested.
In terms of unemployment, it is high in the country. The government has just made it higher by canceling so many contracts, that by laying off so many Bahamians and then seeking to justify it by pointing out some gaps in public service that predated them coming to office and predated us coming to office. The public service is damaged in many ways.
Christmas Day made 100 days since the Davis administration took office. On Thursday, Prime Minister Philip Davis touted his government's fulfillment of promises like the reduction of value-added tax to 10%, but he insisted there's much more work to be done. However, Pintard pointed out several issues since taking office. While he commended the Prime Minister's speech at COP26 in Scotland, Pintard said the failure to clearly state the government's position on oil drilling is a problem.
Public statements, particularly in the international arena, while important and necessary, are not sufficient. That must then be anchored by decisions we make at home. So, for example, by sending a clear message on what our policy is relative to oil drilling and the potential adverse impact of an accident with oil on the other parts of our blue economy, like fisheries, like tourism, like the general environment that allows the Bahamas to be in the conversation in the international arena as providing a sink.
As a new year rolls in, Minister of Grand Bahama, Ginger Moxie, says she has high hopes for the Northern Island that has faced economic challenges for more than a decade.
I'm so hopeful. I'm encouraged by many of the projects that are on the drawing board.
Moxie says there are several projects already in the pipeline.
We have 2 new cruise port developments that are going on with the Carnival Cruise Line and Royal Caribbean Cruise Line. There's the downtown redevelopment project that I'm especially excited about. It happens to be in Pine Ridge. And then there's with the western end of the island, we're going to try to get that administrative complex completed that will draw a lot of activity in the West Grand Bahama community. We also have the Holmes Rock Primary School that is now is proposed to be opening in the fall of the new year.
Moxie stressed infrastructural upgrades are not their only focus for 2022.
What I'm also focusing on is something that I call partnerships for development, because we have to come together as a community, the corporate companies, the nonprofits and all that, to make things happen. Oftentimes you hear a lot of complaints about things not happening, but I believe that if we do not come together and make it happen, it won't happen.
Still to come on our news, pandemic pain lingers for many restaurants. And should JUNKANOO seats or a Christmas display occupy Rawson Square next holiday season? That's coming up when our news returns.
And the one thing we do know is that in every sport, one of the hardest places to get into is, of course, the place where only coaches and athletes are allowed. Today, that changes as we give you an all-access pass to the locker room. Football guru, as you have dubbed him. The LA Lakers are looking pretty good. The locker room.
You're watching Our News. Welcome back. This fourth wave of COVID-19 cases making it harder for businesses still struggling to rebound during the pandemic. Over at Fusion Superplex, co-founder Takoyo Bridgewater says they're still in the red, but making it work.
Business is still rough because remember now, we were limited for the most part of the year as it relates to the capacity of the things that we, at least the capacity of our amenities, the capacity of our seating in our movie theaters. So we are still in that red trying to get out, but we're hopeful that moving forward, some of the restrictions can be removed. We can look at the new variant as not as deadly. More people are vaccinated, like how we encourage our staff members to be vaccinated.
Not too far away, Balmoral Club President Dwayne Mortimer says things are getting better based on the economic outlook.
The last quarter of 2021 has been 80% of pre-COVID levels. So when you compare that with last year, it's been good. As you know, Omicron is out there and the virus is spreading more rapidly. Thankfully, it's not as severe, it appears. So the outlook for 2022 is still positive.
In the tourism and hospitality industry, businesses like Tiki Bikini Hut are doing much better now than they were in 2020.
Fortunately, I think businesses like ours, we will fill the void from other businesses. And I think we're going to have to continue to do that until we can get to some level of normalcy.
When Our News comes back from the break, will Rawson Square be the home of JUNKANOO bleachers or another stunning display next Christmas? And later, find out the quote of the week. We have the details when Our News returns.
And the one thing we do know is that in every sport, one of the hardest places to get into is, of course, the place where only coaches and athletes are allowed. Today, that changes as we give you an all-access pass to the locker room. Football guru, as you have dubbed him. The LA Lakers are looking pretty good. The locker room.
Welcome back. JUNKANOO seating or space for a glorious Christmas display? That's the question for next year if JUNKANOO parades come off next holiday season. In the absence of the parade, a beautiful Christmas display took its place, captivating the young and old and drawing large crowds for photo opportunities and, of course, quality family time. But what about next year? That display was really only possible because JUNKANOO was canceled for a second year in a row, with that area normally reserved for prime JUNKANOO seating. What do you want to see next year, this or JUNKANOO bleachers?
JUNKANOO bleachers.
Tell me why.
Yes. Because it's our culture. It's family time as well as this. You can take portraits, pictures, but JUNKANOO is more our culture and tourists come to see it. You know?
And I have to put this somewhere else, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely, yeah.
Thank you so much for your...
keep it here. Just put the bleachers somewhere else.
Hey guys, JUNKANOO fans, what do you think about this for the future?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They should do this every year. Keep this just for this.
And a little bigger and better. Every year, do something a little different.
Yeah, I love it. I think this will bring more attraction and tourists things seeing this along with the seats on the side of it. I think it'd be a good, opening thing for the tourists when they come to see watch JUNKANOO.
And something else for the children.
Yeah.
Next year, hoping to see the lights again. Of course, we would hope for JUNKANOO. That's first and foremost. we pray this COVID situation should be cleared up by then. But if not, then this will be a nice second prize.
We're counting down the most memorable quotes of the week. That's coming up when our news returns.
And the one thing we do know is that in every sport, one of the hardest places to get into is, of course, the place where only coaches and athletes are allowed. Today, that changes as we give you an all-access pass to the locker room. Football guru, as you have dubbed him. The LA Lakers are looking pretty good. The locker room.
It's time now for a look back on the stories that made headlines last week. At number 3, the sister of a man who was killed by 3 off-duty police officers wants answers and justice for her brother, 31-year-old Azario Major.
I think it was overkill. He had a direct, close-range headshot. We went to view my brother yesterday. Nobody said anything about a headshot. If he was disorderly, why wasn't a patrol car called? Why wasn't he put down on the ground and cuffed and put in a cell to sleep off whatever alcohol they're trying to say he was induced under?
At number 2, Commissioner of Police Paul Roll revealing a 75% increase in homicides in 2021 compared to 2020.
103 murders in New Providence, 13 in Grand Bahama, and 3 in the Family Islands. For the month of December 2021, we recorded 12 homicides. Fatal gunshots remain the leading cause of death.
And your quote of the week comes from Prime Minister Philip Davis, who addressed the discrepancy between rules for hotels that were allowed to host large gatherings this weekend and ordinary Bahamians who had to cancel their events. Davis says the balancing act is a challenging one.
And you may think we get some of these decisions wrong, but the primary health goal is to slow transmission among Bahamians.
Thank you for joining us for Our News Tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Jared Higgs. Have a beautiful evening and a great holiday tomorrow, Bahamians.